Luba Petrova, I'm so excited to chat with you because when we met before, you said something that really grabbed my interest. And that is the statement that art is about learning to see as far as creating art. So I wanted to interview you to talk about that further because I've always had a passion for art. I grew up believing I couldn't do art, and then I explored some possibilities later in life.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much. I'm excited to meet with you. And I'm excited to talk about art because I do teach art for a living.
You started with that statement, art is about seeing. And that to me was one of the most important lessons that my own perception distorts things as a beginning place. And would you kind of go into and elaborate on that?
Yes. So since I opened the studio, which has been a little over a year ago, people, when they find out about me teaching art, the very first question that I get 99% of the time is that what is it that I teach? Do I teach acrylics? Do I teach oils? Do I teach watercolor? And my answer to this, that first and foremost, I teach people to see, because the mediums comes as a way of expressing what is it that captivated us, what is that captured our attention. The medium is truly secondary. We are bombarded with information. And what happens is that we don't really know, we'll look around and we see so many things, but that at the same time, we don't really see them. A lot of times we anticipate things. What is it that we see? So for example, the most common example will be, children drawing sun. On every single picture, you will see a sun with sun rays. And the truth of the matter is that we don't really see the sun with the sun rays. But and it's not that I'm picking on children, I'm not. But the thing is that a lot of times we don't really, we anticipate that if there is the sunflowers will have, petals. And a lot of times it's not that it does not have petals, but an artist, the way artists see the world is not by naming every single thing that comes into their view. It's rather lines, shapes, forms, silhouettes. And another thing is that we usually, when we walk around, it is a three-dimensional world. And to take it and transfer it onto a two-dimensional piece of paper, it is a challenge within and of itself. So what I teach, or what we talk a lot in classes, is that before we start anything, I ask adult students and young students alike to look at what they're drawing, be it a still life or a landscape, and say, what is it that you're looking at? What is it you're excited about? What is it that you want to capture? And what is it that you want to make your viewer to see first? So in a way, it's like writing a story. What is your main character? What is the protagonist? And then everything else comes secondary after that. So a very good example, if I were to paint your portrait, I would be focusing on your face. What's happening in the background will be secondary to what's happening, with your face. And what a lot of us do when we begin is that we look at your face and we paint your face with great amount of details. And then we go and we start painting the background with as many details as, we have in your face. So what happens when the viewer comes to look at our masterpiece, and we're so happy and proud to display, we confuse the viewer because the viewer does not know what to look first. Is it about beautiful background you have, or is it about your face? And we really need to learn to prioritize, and in a way, what's important and what's not, and how you find what is important. I have a good example. I don't know if can you see very well?
Yes, we can. I can.
So these are obviously two identical pictures. And this picture, if you look at it, the very first thing that jumps at you, it will be the flowers.
Right.
The flowers are, that's what you're looking at. And if you look at this picture, what happens is that the flowers are kind of playing secondary role, because the most contrast is here, because that's the face of that vase that is capturing the light coming from the window. So, and this is an example of how you are taking something that looks, it's the same, obviously, still life, same bouquet of flowers. But what I'm talking about here are the flowers. What we're talking about here is that beautiful light on the vase, as opposed to the white flowers, in other words, become secondary. So, and when you pay equal amount attention to different parts of your painting or your drawing, it becomes very confusing for a viewer to look at. And by teaching people a composition, which is the placement of the objects, how you direct your viewer, how you hold your viewer within the canvas, within your piece of paper, if it is a drawing. This kind of works no matter what medium you use. Is it a mixed medium? It doesn't really matter what you use, oils, pastels, watercolors. It's just how you organize a two-dimensional space. So you are effectively capture and relate to your viewer, to your audience. What is it that you hold dear, basically?
Right.
So, and I think that all these techniques, all this skill, and this is a skill. I have to say, it's not a gift. Right. It's not a mystery. It's a teachable skills. It's basically just you are learning to see and analyze what's in front of you consciously. You are learning to see at things and decide what's important, what needs to stay, and what is less important, what can be omitted at all from the picture. So it's just making students more conscious as to what is it they see, how they look at the world in front of them. That's what we do.
That was exciting.
The starting point anyway.
What's exciting because it's pieces of stuff that I learned when I took on my first drawing, which I shared with you. And it is also bringing so much more to it of what could happen if someone like you mentors somebody through the process of learning to see. And several things I think of with this, because I've done photography since high school, is my photography teacher, whose name was Olga, put a Coke bottle on a stump, and she said, "You don't get to photograph anything else till I see 5 original images." And 3 or 4 rolls later, I passed.
Right.
And you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I had to learn from something simple. Now I'm realizing what you said. I had to learn to bring unique attention to 5 unique aspects of it. See, and that what you just showed over your shoulder is such a great example, because there's the conversation at the top. And I love that you use the word kind of dialogue, conversation, story. At the top is the flowers.
Right.
And the one at the bottom is the glass. And neither one is good or bad.
Exactly.
They're just different.
Exactly.
And different human beings would see different. And what I see you open up is, since it's a learnable skill, it's not about, do I have the ability to create art or not? When you get them to understand how to see the world like you're talking about,
exactly,
the medium becomes secondary. And I personally had never thought of that before. I know in photography, we talk about something called bokeh and dropping things out of focus, but I never quite got it. Is like, what's the story? What's the emotion I want to share with it? What's grabbing me? But no one ever gave a tool of how to start extracting that into another medium. That's what's exciting about what you're talking about.
But if you think about this from a photography standpoint, we would use bokeh when we really want a viewer to focus on the subject.
Right.
So, and it's very, what you are saying basically, yes, somehow the knowledge is still there. It's just a lot of times what happens is that we learn something, but the words, how you communicate something to a person may make a tremendous difference, because, something that I may not necessarily express very well, you may find a better way of expressing or putting it into words. And what's very interesting and what I appreciate is that people come and people do have foundation, whether or not they realize it's not. And I can tell you that, especially with adults, though surprisingly to me, I see this in kids, people are very, very self-conscious, and people, for some reason, we have a tendency to doubt what is it that we know already. And it's interesting that getting through or finding the words that will resonate. So, for example, for you, I may be coming and explaining things from a photography standpoint. So it's just how you put things in words and finding the right words to connect with a person.
Yeah.
To find the way a person understands and comprehends things. And this presents a very delightful challenge in a way.
For you as a teacher, well, that's clearly.
Well, for me as a teacher, and it actually makes it easier. I think it makes it easier for the students. I do have one wonderful lady, and she's been with me pretty much since the beginning. And she jokes with me because she says, yes, you always say, guys, you have to enjoy what you do, find joy. But then you come back and says, you've got to do what I'm telling you to do.
Right.
So, but the thing is that it's really the fact that people show up, in spite of insecurities, in spite some preconceived ideas or something that, have been downloaded in our minds, whether we're conscious of it or not. The fact that people are showing up and saying, I don't know how to draw, I suck at drawing, I'm a complete beginner. And this is that act of willing to try to give a chance, open yourself up to something new. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. It is incredible because not only people realize that actually they do know something, that if I as a teacher find the right words or meet them at their level, at where they are, without expecting them to be somewhere else, without comparing them to other people, people actually open up working at their pace. People actually start that journey, that proverbial first few steps that a journey of 1,000 miles begin with. This is how it happens. So for me, my delightful challenge as a teacher to understand where you are, where everyone is, and find the way to encourage that what brought you through the doors in the first place, and create that environment where it's safe, where there are no mistakes. I often tell people that, don't worry, the fate of the world does not depend on whether or not, you will exhibit this in a gallery 5 months later. Trust me, the world will be just fine.
And the other thing I thought of is just the fact how we don't realize how our past and our experience distort what we see. And then also the fact that for survival, we have to set priorities and we don't even know our mind's automatically doing it. So if I'm like, I have a light here, if I'm looking at the light, my mind's deleting everything else, but I don't know it. But then if I'm drawing and I try to include everything, like you said, my mind in the real world is picking priorities all the time unconsciously. And I don't know it. And it's filtered from my past. So this idea that you're first getting people to see it literally, then getting them to ask what's grabbing you, what's emotionally moving you, what's grabbing you, and then helping them bring it out into the world. Then do you want to do it in charcoal? Do you want to do it in pencil?
Exactly.
Do you want to do it in watercolors? Or so it could even be in photography now that you've got that. The medium becomes the secondary. That's to me exciting that it's that idea. Could you share a story of maybe someone who came and said, I think I can't draw, but I'm going to try it anyway, and then worked with you and then made something that they are impressed with? Just some specific journey someone went on.
Well, I know that the lady, she was very, very hesitant, and she came in and she said, and she's retired. I think she's a retired college professor or maybe high school. I don't remember, but she was very, very, she's very proper. She's very strict because
Right.
all her life she, has been working with the students.
Right. And needed to have authority when she did it. Right.
Yes. And part of it is that it's she's much, so it's a different generation, and how, different generation or older generation was brought up. Kind of, it was a more strict environment. There were more of that, what you can do, what you cannot do, what you're good at, what you are not good at. And her entire life, it was basically about someone else. Yeah. And when she came in, I do remember that she did tell me that her family, was not very supportive of her. They thought it was, why would you do this? Why not to stay home and read books?
Right.
And it's very interesting that at this point, so she's been, it's been actually a year now. And to me, it's very interesting that not only, so what happens, the beauty of this is that when we allow ourselves to just be, because you have to start, you have to kind of go to a place where you meet your inner child, where an expectation of creating something perfect is not it's not part of the equation. So a lot of times what we actually do, and I do it myself, in my own practice, sometimes when you cannot get out of our head, what I offer people, or actually what I make people to do, is I said, we're going to draw with our non-dominant hand. It's going to be just a scribble. We're going to draw something. You want to draw, a still life in front of you, non-dominant hand, 7 minutes. Because what happens is that, what happens is that we do not, as adults, we do not have any expectations of creating a masterpiece without non-dominant hand.
Right. We know it's going to be a mess.
So we just like, whatever, and what happens in that process, that 7 minutes seem to be a magic. I mean, I've been experimenting with time just because I kind of need to structure my lessons, but 7 minutes seem to be this optimal window when it's not long enough, and yet it's long enough when we switch to our dominant hand. It's like it clears our head, and you can start, you kind of give yourself some grace in a way, where you're just graceful with yourself, where you can just draw. It's like you're flushing whatever is that was what you've been carrying with, at least for a time being, and then you start. So anyway, so she's been really easing into this being with just, I'm a person who is interested in drawing and painting. I don't have any expectations of, I don't have any desire to perform or to exhibit. I just want to draw, and I want to get better at this, and I want to grow. For me, I want to grow. And now it's very interesting because we had a small exhibition for adult students, our adult group, and she actually brought her family, and her husband came to me and thanked me profusely, because he basically told me that his wife is she's much more happier and light.
Yeah, in life.
In life. So
yeah.
It's like, I said, well, you're very welcome. Whether or not I can, I do really believe, I'm not necessarily certain that I can take the entire credit, because I don't know what else is happening in her life. But I do feel that if we allow ourselves to be authentically in something that really makes us experience life fully, it kind of like splashes, it carries over into, other aspects of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had some crazy story. I had a lady who was, they are from Netherlands, and she and her husband were traveling across the states, and she just happened to be in Asheville when I had back before COVID, when I had my first paint and sip night.
Yeah.
So, and you see this, like, she's from Netherlands.
Right.
She was in Asheville for like 2 days.
Right.
It was fall. They were, driving up and down Blue Ridge Parkway. And you have these people from Western North Carolina, born and raised, and you have these people from, Netherlands across the pond.
Right. Right.
And just seeing people enjoying, just painting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like it was a happy time.
And she came back, is this the one that came back even?
Oh, no. That was another lady. No,
Oh,
that lady was from Netherlands.
Right.
And then I had a student, actually, she lives in Florida, and somehow she found out about the school. I don't know how, but then so she was selling a house in St. Louis, and she decided to drive through Western North Carolina on her way to close on the house. She took a lesson on Saturday, with me, and then she sold the house, and on her way back, she took another lesson with us.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know, I'm pretty tickled, it's actually neat, when it's like all of a sudden you have all these people from Netherlands, and I don't know, people must be I must be doing something right.
Right.
Because people seem to enjoy it. I don't know. I love the energy in our classes. And you see, and the beauty of it is the classes are relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what happens is that it allows every single student to work at where they are. It allows me to, as I work with the students, I can talk to you about something that is pertinent to you. Mm-hmm. And I can turn around and I talk to someone else about what they need to learn, not what you need to learn, mm-hmm. but what they need to learn. Mm-hmm. And the format of the classes really, supports that. So it's individual, and yet people work together, and they are so supportive of one another. Kind of also makes me almost tearful, because people are very kind and supportive, and I can hear behind, because I may be talking with one student and they're like whispering and supporting each other. It's like, no, you actually did this good. You remember what she said the last time? Right. So I don't know. I just love the atmosphere. I'm very humbled, and I'm very grateful, for people to showing up, because I absolutely enjoy sharing, and I'm just seeing people progress and seeing people kind of connecting the dots. And I know that they progress because, however, they might think that they are progressing very slowly. Mm-hmm. But the point being is that I don't know what's the right speed of progress. Mm-hmm. No one knows. All I know is that no matter, you may grow very quickly right now, but then you reach a plateau, and then you're really working so very hard just to get across that. So the thing is that it's not that how quickly, like what are we racing towards? If you think about this, the fact that people keep showing up, and the fact that people really very slowly or very quickly, depending on who you're looking at, they kind of get something, and they are able to master the next task. But it's like an apple. You cannot really get to the core of it. You continue to do like this, nibble from each side, and it's a magical apple. You probably can't eat the whole apple, but this one, it's like you learn one aspect, and then you are investigating the next aspect, and they're in a way interconnected. So not only you're looking at something new, but you're also kind of incorporating what you've learned. So I don't know. It's I'm excited.
I get it. There's several things I want to footnote that you brought up. One, that I know from my own experience of my best coaching with people is creating an environment that both challenges people to move outside their comfort zone,
right,
and makes it safe enough for them to do it. And that's something I've had clients mention in their own words. But that's, whenever we have a gift, you clearly have a gift in teaching. Often that's something I've seen before. They're able to, I describe it as create an environment that's not just safe, but also challenging. And they aren't paradoxes. They aren't, opposition. They're together with that. So that's one of the things I hear that's occurring. Another thing is, in my study of the anatomy of mastery, you talked about it goes along and then it jumps. Mm-hmm. And then it plateaus and then it jumps. So by you getting them to focus on the process and enjoying the process,
right,
then when you're at that plateau, it gives them room to hang out, because it hangs out. Those plateaus go until they don't, and then a jump occurs. And that's what I've learned in the anatomy of mastery is not a linear path. It's climb and then hold. And I think something's happening at the unconscious level during that time that's very important and integrated and holistic.
Right.
And then then our system reintegrates. It's not linear, lets them go to the next level. And that's something I hear is occurring in your classes. Another thing I want to just share is when I took on already was a project, since I was getting more into coaching people and challenging them to get outside their comfort zone. I realized, okay, what do I believe I can't do? And I named a series of things I couldn't do. And I couldn't draw, I couldn't dance, I couldn't write poetry, and I couldn't play an instrument, and I couldn't sing. And then I took those on. And what's amazing is how terrifying it was that maybe I was right and I couldn't. I know that sounds odd, but the fear, I'm now going to test and I might find I really can't, And that's why having a safe environment like yours to be in is so important, because you're creating a place where there's no failure. And I shared my first real drawing, and I'll share it here. I took on drawing my hands with the harmonica because someone said hands were the hardest to draw, and it's kind of like your non-dominant hand thing. So if I botched it, it's impossible it's hard to do.
Right.
And such an important piece of you offering that space for people to forget about failure, forget about not succeeding, so that they can get out of their own way. And I think that's part of the experience that you're offering in this environment, and pertinent for our listeners to understand you aren't going to grow inside your comfort zone. You're never going to create something interesting. In fact, I have to tell you, I have a t-shirt that says, if your life's boring, it's because you're boring. Life begins outside your comfort zone. And I said it to some younger people at my university. I give a talk once a year. And I said, what was the best quote I gave? And like 2/3 said, that was the best quote. I'm hearing from you, this is also a component of learning art. Permission, knowing some mechanics, getting some coaching in what it is, learning to see the world, and then, but also moving through that fear of I might actually, what if I have a talent? And then there's the fear, what if I do? And that teacher that told me I can't draw when I was 5 cut off all that time in my life where I didn't draw. I mean, there's so many layers that then when we break through, it can ripple effect. Like the husband that said, thank you. In my experience, when we have those breakthroughs in one area, sometimes they ripple to other areas of the life. And that's what I hear is something very valued in you, of working with the people to create that environment for it.
I think it's we all become richer as we venture out into new territory. Kids are just like, they just love to create, and I'm absolutely fascinated by, can I show an example?
Absolutely.
I need to bring it.
Yeah, go get an example, sure.
But I have this class for the kids. It's called Architectural Adventures. So, and our last project was about Trojan Horse, because I realized that they didn't know what it was. So we read, we watched, we talked. So
Trojan Horse, right?
I actually make like a sample. And if you see, so I made this Trojan Horse.
Uh-huh.
And you see how it has all these different materials, because I don't want them to copy my horse.
Right.
I want them to see, what can be done and what materials I use. And, it's made actually out of boxes, and just let them do their own thing.
Right. And hold up a second. I want to describe it for people who can't see it. It's a horse. It has a little spray paint of silver on, a door, a little ladder, and it looks like you use everything from twigs to, what were those? Some of the things.
Yeah, popsicle sticks.
Toothpicks.
These are yogurt
almost
containers.
Looks like some duct tape on it, but you use different materials, so showing there wasn't one particular material. Excellent.
Right. So and this is the key. So this is, to me, this is a creativity. It's like, and I had my boxes and I had all this stuff. So when this 8-year-old kid comes up and he does something like this, there is no way, as an adult, there is no way. I did not see the horse's head, right, in a metal jug.
Yeah, and so to describe, if they're not seeing it, it's a fascinating box. It almost looks like some type of robotic creature in a very cool way, where he used a can for the head, he used a box, he has the door, he has something. And then what are the legs made out of there too?
These are Ingalls cups.
So they're cups even for the legs, but there was some very intentional painting, and then some type of just creative painting as well.
Matches, and just because it's a wooden horse. Oh, right. And then at some point he says, he tells me, I said, are you gonna decorate your horse? Because, they made it out of wood. He looks at me and he says, well, I used the box, something else, and everything is made out of wood. So technically, I don't have to decorate this because it may stand on its own. So the kids, so going back to what I was going to say, is that the kids, really, they just run, they're creative. Just let them, give them materials, and they will start exploring this. What happens with the adults is when we actually allowed, to basically say, you don't have to create a masterpiece. It's not about the masterpiece. It's just about allowing yourself to do something that you always wanted to do, or explore for however briefly. Mm-hmm. So, and it's a very therapeutic, it's very healing, because there are really, truly no expectations. And it's just like letting yourself be.
What's exciting here is, from some of the stuff I've seen, people have done pretty amazing art out of it. So, even out of this, they're creating something that says something and expressing too. And I think that's the exciting piece of it.
Because we all have something to share. Mm-hmm. We all have this. We all have unique vision. When people come and see, I don't know, it's not that they don't have it. It's that may not have the right tools. It is my job to give the tools. Mm-hmm. But we all come with the experiences. We all come with our aha moments. And we see things differently. We pay attention to different things. Mm-hmm. And we highlight when we paint. Mm-hmm. There is not a single painting, even when you do sip and paint things, mm-hmm. It really comes out, even though people are like following, really pretty much relaxing and just doing, but it's still different. And especially when in the environment, when you're allowed to, like, you can pick where you're gonna stand. Look what you like, articulate what you like. It allows people to connect the dots, because we all go, along our day, about our day, and we all see something. And it's like, oh, but sometimes we can't say it. When you come to an art class, you are asked to actually articulate, because this is the first step as to how you understand and start learning to see consciously. So, and it helps to kind of ground what is it that already you have. It's not that I don't do anything other than provide tools and help people to kind of realize what is it they already know, how you get to what you already know, what you want to express, and providing these tools. So,
and one of the things that one of my mentors years ago, he taught me thinking, and that's a whole different conversation. But he said, I admire these things, but I can't do them. And he said, only a prince can dream of a castle. And that was like life changing, in that it might be possible that if you admire it and desire it, that you might be able to actually do it. Now, not to the level of whatever you love the best, but something. And from my own challenging of those things, it's amazing how true it's been proven. That if you see and go, I wish I could do art, then maybe what you need is the right environment to explore it.
right.
And I think that's a critical piece of what you're offering in your school, is that type of combination, what I call both a safe environment, but a challenging environment. And it's hard to describe, but you need both. You don't want it just safe so that there's nothing that helps them get a little bit outside their shell and moves beyond it as well. Both seem extremely important.
Well, this is why, as Elizabeth says, I encourage people to enjoy the process,
Right.
but at the same time, I'm telling them what they need to be doing.
Right. And so they have both, and they both
It's
work
a paradox.
together.
It's a paradox, but it's really,
It works for you.
it works.
It clearly works for the student, because it had a ripple effect in her life. Would you just give a little bit of the background of your experience, and then I want to hear a lot more.
Well, I remember that when I was 11 years old, my parents decided that I have outgrown the art school where I had been studying since I was, I think, 4 years old. So, and they took me to that much more prestigious, well, from their standpoint, school. And I still remember that the assignment was to draw your favorite animal. And my favorite animal happens to be, a horse. So I've drawn this beautiful picture from my perspective. It was beautiful with the horses. And then I showed this to the instructor. And the instructor, and I was 11 and a half years old. And the instructor looked at this picture and said, "This is horrible.
Right.
You should be ashamed of yourself. I want you to throw this away right now. Like, there's a trash can." And well, in Russia, at the time when I was growing up, it was not a customary thing. You had to follow the orders.
Right.
So I got up and he kind of tore that, my picture off the easel and handed it to me. And I was paraded like in front of the entire group, and I walked towards that trash can. And I remember how I was standing facing the trash can, my back to the class, and I was actually folding my picture with my beautiful horses, like into that very small, tiny thing. And I hid it I pretended to throw it away, and then I hid it under my sweater. And that's what I brought back home. And that was the last time when I was in that studio, because my parents both went to they took exception to that, and they both went to the instructor and said, we're taking our kid out because this is not the way to do it. So, and I remember to this day, I remember how traumatizing it was. I also, right now, especially right now when I teach, I understand the power, the words, how much words matter, how much the words have, can impact. And it's true about children and adults alike. So, and this is why in what I do, I really being very, very mindful of the words and how we phrase it. Because back then, I really feel that the bar for many of us has been set so high that, you know, it felt like you didn't have a chance if you did not match up to some expert level of, be it Michelangelo or Mozart, or you were not good enough. And you had to carry it, and I had to carry it, and I had to work with this. And, you know, now looking back, it seems that it would have been much easier to avoid this in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and so basically I started to draw when I was very, very small. I probably turned 4, and I absolutely loved it. I really absolutely, I loved it. And I was doing a lot of things because I was not very coordinated, and my parents were athletes, and I was not very coordinated. So I also did a lot of figure skating and dancing and a lot of other things, because my parents really wanted to make sure that I would be able to walk without falling every other step. Right. You know, but eventually it kind of became the most important thing to me. So I was attending, when I was in school, I would attend after school, I would attend like a specialized art school, and I studied, I actually entered and studied in St. Petersburg Academy of Art, Architecture and Sculpture until we had to, you know, leave the country. So pretty much my entire life, you know, I studied, you know, painting and drawing and art. And when I got to the States, because of how we asked my family, my mother asked for an asylum. So when we came, we did not really have any, we did not have any privileges or any rights in a way. So for me, I could not even attend even community college because, you know, we did not have money to pay for it, and I was not eligible for any aid. And at the time, I actually was extremely lucky, because there was at the time the only school in the States. It's a Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art. And at the time, it was the only school in the United States where if you pass the entrance exams, you get a full scholarship. And I actually did. So that was, for me, that was the only chance to continue education. And I was very lucky. I passed that entrance exam, and I was accepted as a transferred student. And there I studied photography. I studied photography. I studied graphic design, primarily because photography is something that I was always interested in. It's just back in Russia, I'm kind of one-minded person. I really need to get everything in depth. So I just wanted to take some time, off from painting and kind of study. And I love photography. I did photography for a number of years. And, I continued to paint and just make art throughout my studies. But my focus was photography at Cooper Union.
Excellent. What got you to start this school?
It's actually very good. I visited my two of my best friends in New York, and I went to spend some time with them. And one of my friends, she is an art teacher. She has her own studio in New York. And I remember that I went because she asked me to teach, to give a lesson, and like as a guest artist. I kind of like that, guest artist. So I spent the most delightful 2 hours of my life. Mm-hmm. And on my way back, I remember that I just realized that I really do not want to wake up 10 years from whatever day that was and think to myself, I had this wonderful idea. I really, truly was happy when I was teaching that class. I really would like, I love teaching. Something happens when I teach, like I am, no matter how long, how many hours, how intense it can be, it brings me joy, it brings me peace, it's a magical experience for me, no matter how intense the lessons and instructions may be. And I just realized that I just have to do it, whether or not I had doubts, whether or not I am a savvy business person, I did not know that. But what I did know is that I love teaching, and it felt magical when I did this, and I just thought I just could not do it. So, and pretty much it was mid-December, and January 7th, I signed the lease for that space. So I just decided that I need to go, and whatever logical conclusion there is at the end, I need to find out. I just did not want, I just could not do it. I just knew that I had to do it because it just does something for me. And I did not want to live with regrets. I do not want to look over my shoulder and I thinking to myself, well, I should have done it.
Yeah. Excellent. Great.
Now here I am.
Now here you are, and the one
we celebrated my first anniversary, it was April 27th, so everything was shut down.
Right.
So here we are.
Excellent.
And I'm really truly very grateful, to the parents and my students, because it's, as you can imagine, I mean, we all can imagine what's happening with small businesses. Mm-hmm. And the fact that people show up, the fact that people appreciate and see what I do as far as safety, and I am just really grateful and humbled by their support. And I sent everyone an email truly thanking them from the bottom of my heart, because it's been very challenging. This year has been.
Yeah, for all of us. Yes.
For everyone.
Right. No, I got it. That's excellent. This was wonderful to talk about art and to get it. And I hope people all took something away. I got something out of it, to get out in the world and start noticing, where's your attention drawn? What do you move by? What grabs you of that? And kind of start breaking it down. And then how would you take that 3-dimensional world and transfer it to a 2-dimensional world? I'm sure you go a lot more into that in your classes, but this is the beginning. Would you let people know how they can learn about your school, how they can get access to it, and where you're located?
Yes, so we are located in Waynesville, North Carolina. It's about 40 minutes away from Asheville. It's Waynesville Art School. And people are welcome to subscribe, to our list, newsletter. Right. That I send on a monthly basis, and I post classes on Instagram, Facebook, and on our website.
Well, thanks again. This was delightful.
Martin, thank you so very much for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.